welcome to the launch of Liz Houchin's debut chapbook. Liz joins a very strong list we have of people like Victoria Kennefick and Audrey Malloy, and John Fitzgerald and Roisin Kelly, Bernadette McCarthy, and foreign poets such as Heather Tressler and Maya Papa, most of whom have gone on to place full collections with very prestigious publishers or won subsequent prizes. I'm going to let Johnathan Creasy introduce Liz. I'm just happy to say that I chose Liz's work because it's extremely well crafted and has pertinent things to say and fits very well with the already strong list we've been building up all along. Jonathan will talk in more detail about Liz and about her work. Jonathan himself is an accomplished poet, author, a Renaissance man, practically a filmmaker, musician, editor and publisher of the New Dublin Press, which has produced some beautiful publications, limited editions of poets, and the scores of composers, beautifully bound. I recommend anybody to go and Google New Dublin Press after this. He himself is a recipient of the Literature Bursary from the Arts Council of Ireland. He won a residency at the Centre, the Irish Centre in Paris, and a creative grant from Woodberry Poetry Room at Harvard University. He holds a doctorate in English literature from Trinity College Dublin, and he currently teaches on the creative writing faculty at University College Dublin. So, hand there for Dr. Creasy. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Patrick. It's lovely to be here to be launching this book for Liz Houchin, Anatomy of a Honey Girl, subtitled Poems for Tired Women, but this poet is certainly tireless in the extreme. It's published by Southword Editions and Munster Lit and is supported by the Arts Council of Ireland. There's so many things I could say about the poet. We met in 2018 when Liz was a student, after all, in the UCD Master's Poetry Workshop that I was teaching. And immediately I saw that Liz had a very unique insight, a creative mind, and this kind of insatiable interest in all of the things that we were talking about in terms of poetry, some of which were new, I'm sure. I believe, if I'm correct, Liz, you can correct me, but on the first day I introduced them to the Black Mountain poets and Black Mountain College. And within a couple of months, Liz had borrowed every single book that I have on Black Mountain and still probably has a couple as well. So that interest and a shared interest that we both have, one has led to a project that will follow this chapbook, I know, but also led to Houchin's developing an interest in Annie Albers, the weaver, artist, educational philosopher, as it were. And during the period of crafting many of these poems, I know that Liz was traveling to Albers exhibitions and engaging with all of this kind of work, which to me points to the way, first of all, that Houchin engages with her art seriously and also looks at the process of making poems as exactly that, an active process, poesis, you know, the kind of verb to make when we think about poems. And I always think when I'm thinking about Annie Albers' work, what Albers said, that simplicity comes at the end and not at the beginning of a process. And it's been amazing to me to see Houchin's work from an earlier stage several years ago to the fruition of this chapbook, which I do find extraordinary, accomplished, and something that if you haven't already had the chance to read, that everybody certainly should. There are many things that characterize the poems in Liz's book. One is an engagement, as I've already somewhat alluded to in the idea of Black Mountain and Annie Albers, an engagement with art and experiences outside of poetry, and using these poems to engage with a full life and community of writers and artists. And it's something that I'm very happy to say we've been able to develop together. I think in UCD that developed, I think in Dublin that develops more generally, and of course across Ireland and the United States, both places that Houchin and I have a lot of friends, family, life, and community. But that's where the art really makes its way, is through these connections, and you see that in all of the poems in this collection. The chapbook begins, or is bookended, by reference to measurements of women's bodies, what's called statistics, in, I believe, the opening epigraph. And Houchin confronts this provocation with her own art of measuring, and that's the art of poetry. The poems in Anatomy of a Honey Girl experiment with form, but they maintain this distinct lyricism. And at the center of it is a compelling and individual voice. And any of us who know Liz know that she has a compelling individual voice. And the lyricism at the center of these poems, while they play with form and experiment with form, is, I think, essential to them. Like the poet herself, the pieces in the book are at once serious, precise, energetic, witty, irreverent, playful. They move across all of these areas of communication, of voice, and it's, again, something that's a serious accomplishment for a first chapbook of poems. The Black Mountain poet Charles Olson said that a poem is energy transferred from where the poet got it. And I think each of these poems in Houchin's book vibrates with this essential energy. She's captured what it is to be a woman, to be a human being in our times. And she's given us in this book small, clear windows onto a world that judges, demands, prods, pokes, and after all, measures constantly. There's a poem in the collection titled On Second Thoughts, in which Houchin writes, "Perhaps it would be best if neither you nor I chance knowing what makes me. Leave me as I am, rooted in place, fully barked against human wilt, and accept occasional offerings of blossom and fruit as evidence of what lies beneath." She also begins a poem, Mellified Woman, with a question: where is this all going? And that's certainly, to me, the greatest question when seeing this debut chapbook from Liz Houchin, is just excitement to see where all of this is going. I know there are new projects, I know there are things in the works, but for now, I just want to congratulate Liz Houchin, to thank Monster Lit and all of the group of people who are here to celebrate this publication, and raise a glass that I have prepared for myself to toast virtually Liz, this book, this publication, and hand it over to Liz Houchin to read some poems from this collection. So I give you Liz Houchin.
Thank you, Jonathan. That is very, very nice of you. And thank you to Patrick and James and everyone has joined. So I will read some poems from the chapbook. And the chapbook starts with an epigraph, which is from the fabulous 208 annual for teenage girls from 1969. Figure it out. A model, an actress, and 2 pop girls make up our 4 famous dollies below. If you admire their looks, see how your statistics compare with theirs when you fill in all your details in the column to the right. The first poem in the collection is called The Drosty Effect, and which is that effect of an image inside an image. And it came to me when I was actually in London for an Annie Albers exhibition, but I wandered into a Mary Quant retrospective, which was at the V&A. The Drosty Effect. Mary Quant retrospective at the V&A, July 2019. There's a temple on the Cromwell Road, a place to worship to the gods of cool, to seek absolution from shapeless high street sins. I bowed and blessed myself with matcha tea, rummaging for lip gloss, imposter without poise, wanting to blend wanting to hide among the curated daisies and twigs on show, under lights releasing the musk of youth dew, wafting over minis and Sassoon bobs, bobbing out of plastic macs over long-legged boots. And then the music in my head stopped dead, faced with an unholy celebration of underwear, booby traps promising your own sweet self -6 pounds, and the anatomy of a girl who reads Honey magazine and understands dieting to disappear inside the recursive image of ourselves, getting smaller, getting smaller, getting smaller, all the time, always. When I was at these exhibitions, I was looking at all the little gallery labels that show the name of the piece and the materials it was made from and the year. And I wondered the following poem. If my mother had a retrospective at the V&A, camo, 1978, wool. An army green jumper knitted in 4 squares for my brother's action man, who literally lost his shirt in a parachute accident off the flat roof. Wedding flowers, 1980, cotton. A string of crochet daisies cut from my mother's wedding dress and sewn on to my communion dress to make it, and by extension me, less plain. Cat's eye, 1981, polyester. Carrying bag for marbles made from old brown curtains. According to my marble champion brother, it was as strong as a saddlebag. Gold, 1981, satin rope. A red satin cloak for my nativity debut as Melchior, tied around my neck with a length of rope, which until that point was securing a drape. Rabbit, 1988, wool, plastic, thread. A collaboration with my younger sister, who forgot to finish or even start her knitting project, complete with odd button eyes and a wry smile. Now you see it, 1985, 300 thread count cotton. One of her finest achievements, a self-proclaimed invisible mending of a Woodbine cigarette burn in my grandmother's quilt from America. The next 2 poems kind of speak for themselves. The second one is about a day that goes wrong. Erasure. What is it about me you are so afraid of? Every time I dare think I am drawn in permanent marker, you take something away. And I realize to you I am only an idea sketched in soft 2B, vulnerable to your fingertips. I rub my eyes gently and try to understand your end game. Do you want me to not be? Do you want to be me? You smell victory either way, but really, have you thought this through? As you sharpen your pencil to imagine me again, getting smaller all the time, but point well made, you will only have yourself to blame. Island picnic fight. Silence has a scent, he said, like the sea, but not the hot orange boiled sweet sucked shiny weak in Spain sea. No, not that sea, the other one, tumbling growls, spraying cold gusts of grey, foamy old woman's spittle. I could not speak above the attrition rounding us like pebbles fit for palms before eroding us to sand. That May we were on saltee and we began on song, our song, stuck on repeat, scratch, happy, happy, hap, hap, ha, ha, then nothing but the pressured pop of needled love, leaving only the summer gale blowing through the crevice prized open between bodies in retreat, standing on the beach, wrapped in layers taped shut by bumped and braided arms. We turned our backs to the bluebells and waited to ferry home the dregs of us and our basket of crusts and cores. I'm going to finish with the last poem in the collection, which is slightly longer, but not really long, so I don't do long. But before I do, I just want to thank again Patrick Cotter and James O'Leary at Southword and Munster Lit. The whole publication process of being completely flawless and a pleasure. To Johnathan Creasy for taking time from his extraordinarily busy schedule to be here. As he said, he took on the job of teaching me poetry at UCD, along with Judy Morrissey and Paul Perry, and I got very, very lucky. And to everyone who has joined this call from UCD, Poetry School, Arvine Foundation, and of course all my family and friends, it is very decent of you to take some time out of your evening to be here. The final poem in the collection is, well, based on a myth that I became fascinated, which is the myth of the mellified man. And this is a myth from a 15th century Chinese medicine book. And it was about monks who essentially turned themselves into human honey. And they did so because in the belief that after 100 years, what they had become would have the ability to heal broken bones. And obviously honey had appeared in Mary Quant, and just kind of honey just kept coming back into my life. And thinking about basically how tired I am, and tired thinking about the generations of women who are fairly exhausted, waiting for the next instruction on how we should look and how we should behave. And I did wonder, maybe those monks knew what they were doing, and maybe we should just shortcut the whole process and turn ourselves into honey. So this last poem is pretty much based on that idea, and it is addressing our old friend, the patriarchy. Mellified woman. For honey coupled to beauty is to have honey a sauce to sugar. Shakespeare, As You Like It. Where is all this going? So much vanilla and rose, lavender and grapefruit souring on my skin, smeared and sprayed, blurring and masking. You wait for me to understand. Your patience stretched over seas and centuries like the skin of an animal bred with teeth and tongue for honor and respect. I'm a standing girl to sand and polish, cloths and creams sloughing my grit, revealing my grain to the light from the torch you carry. The beauty supernova is just an infinite star chart of fools, sparkles, and shiny rewards shooting towards a black hole I can't see. Where is all this going? The A to my Q came not from vintage Vogue, but an ancient myth of mellified monks. My fate, my script engraved in your familiar hand. You wrote other myths too, presented as lists because I am slow-witted. 101 ways, 50 ways, 3 ways to satisfy, to shine, to fill the space you shaped for me. The monks, there's always a monk, did not believe in diets and creams, booby traps and dyes, and chose honey, there's always honey, for their sacrifice. Ate honey, bathed in honey until death by honey, buried in a casket filled with honey for 100 years, transfigured into a healing human confection. Human confection, sweet. How sweet that I have practiced being sweet all my life, palatable and Moorish to your gaze. It makes sense now, finally you say your role is clear as honey with the pollen filtered out, no sediment of me to spoil the dream of Minerve in summer, the blurring beauty of Kate's highlights, Cindy's shins. You spooned me, you can watch me. Keep a diary and write another list myth. The Honey Girl Guide to Human Confection, rhyme it with perfection and smile from the whitened teeth out. Helpful hints for when it sticks to your hair, clags in your throat, how to be happy when you cry, honey, bleed, honey, sweat, honey, when your breasts leak, honey, it's all for you, honey. It won't be long now. You have been waiting for me, standing outside the bathroom door where jars filled with clover, orange blossom and acacia emptied down my throat to slake your thirst for girls and dolls, crowd every surface like midnight on New Year's Eve. I close my eyes, lower my amber body as lobes of honey lava advance on my flanks. You guided me here, a drone over a lifelong unicursal labyrinth of makeovers and mirrors, a climax of illusion that the path was mine and joined with yours by chance. You will still be here in 100 years, ready to serve me on a spoon dipped in a casket of medicinal sweet, melted to a poultice for your scars, healing what is wrong with you. Consume me and call me Malona. Thank you very much.